Welcome back, YouTube. I wanted to point out a few things here that we're seeing today. As right now, we see that crypto is moving up, and this is what we talked about over the last couple of days. It's because we see that if we are going to mirror a 2020, 2021 movement across the markets, typically that means that those quote unquote meme stocks are going to run, and then a lot of that capital is going to kind of rotate out into crypto. And just like in 2020, 2021 true fashion, we're seeing an immediate response here across the board. And a lot has to do with the stock market. Today was a really good day. We got the CPI numbers kind of trending in the direction we wanted to. SPY hit an all-time high. It was just a good day across the board. So of course, this is going to be reflected across the board as well. We're going to see typically this green here. And so as you can see, based off of these numbers here, you'll see like Bitcoin, 1 hour, 24 hour, 7 day, well, it literally just turned red, but you'll see that typically we're getting a lot of green in this range here. And even the charts here over the last 7 days, we're rotating up, right? The only one that's red, well, there's two that's red in the top 10, and that's Cardano and XRP. Everybody else is green. So that's really good here. Fear index is neutral still, so not a risk of like extreme greed or being like a sell-off right now. And this is ultimately what we need to kind of push into that next zone. And that's what I want to talk about as far as for closing into that zone, because that's what's going to give us the signal for heading toward that 45, that 39 to 45 cent range. So let's take a look here at that, because that's going to be really the biggest thing that we have going forward. And right now, with aggressive movements that we have into this zone, it's really beneficial for the movement here to kind of give us some projections going forward. So right now, a little over 15.5 cent, 15.1563. And as you can see, we are back into this zone here. So a lot of times people are asking, especially if you have not seen some of the older videos, where am I getting this 45 cent from? And it's actually a range. It's 39 to 45 cent. But I'm taking the average of the last time we had the 72, this 14 cross the 72. It's really a big deal for these cryptos when you have such a wide gap in moving averages cross each other. They almost always signal an uptrend, as far as an explosive uptrend at that. Now, to the downside, typically it gets ignored because of the catalyst and how close we are to the expected bull run. So typically when you have the 14 cross to 72 to the downside, or create a death cross, it doesn't have the same explosive reaction that you would think, because if you're comparing it to the upside. And you can see evidence of that here. You would have the 14 crossing the 72, which is technically known as a death cross. And we did get some downward movement, but we came down here. We went no lower than before we had the death cross, right? We're bouncing off of the 15 cent, the 12 range. And you see this rejection here. We got a couple here. And even way back in early March, start March 2nd, March 3rd, we were rejecting off of the 12 range. So even after we got this death cross here on, was this 27th, 28th of April, we went roughly no lower. We didn't close any lower, right? The price went lower, but we closed at the same level that we were closing at before. But and you can even see this here. We can see if we go back to January, you'll see the same thing here. 14 crossing the 72. Price action went no lower, went right to the top of of our major liquidity zones, right? We literally went from 845 to a low of 748 with a 14 crossing and 72 death cross. So it meant absolutely nothing. I'm not going to say it means nothing, but when you start getting, when you have a strong investor base, typically when you have those indicators, the buying pressure picks up so greatly that it does not signal a turnover. But to the upside, we have the 14 crossing the 72 here. And this is when they explode. This is that historic run that we had back in early March. I charted back to 2016. I could not see a time where we closed 9 days consecutively higher, right? This is the only time I can find on the charts that we closed 9 days straight higher. You could have purchased any day in here and you would have turned a profit the very next day. This is the result of this was flagged basically by that 14 crossing that 72 indicator. And then we went on this historic run. And historic meaning we left from around 8 cent and we went up to around 21 cent. right? We ultimately tested higher, but still, this run here before we got our rejection, where our rejection came in was from the 22 cent rate, and even then, we still closed at roughly at the previous day's high, which is around 18 cent, and that was when we had that battle of around 18 cent. So that signal gave us this run. And then we had some test here, around, of course, at around the 22 cent run. And where we're positioning ourselves now is we are about to, especially closing in this zone here, because you'll see that because we had this bull, which is obviously good because typically this bull will fill to the upside. This will give us the momentum we need to kind of have this meeting of the minds here between the 72 and the 14-day moving averages. So that is a major signal to the next leg. And it is really just important is when you have these major legs here, but you go from 18 to 22, one of the a great bullish indicator is, do you give up those gains and when it's time to do like retests, when they're selling off, when there's macro news, when people are taking profits, are those gains given up? And they were not. We have not seen these lows since we had this indicator cross, and we have some very strong support here at around 12 cent, and we're not even consolidating at the support. We're actually resting above it. We only come down to test it, and then we go up and typically have in the 15 range. So that's why you can take that multiplier and kind of get that range there of that 39 to 45 cent here if we're to replicate this this previous trend here. So that's very bullish for the next leg up for Doge, and obviously trigger the next leg up for the overall market. So even if you take a look here, I haven't looked at shorts in a few days. Last I checked, they were running out, still running out. Shorts are getting out of the way. Another great way to try to check the market. As we were looking yesterday, longs were 75%. Shorts are only making up 25%. So we're still having 3-to-1 long positions taken. Shorts are not confident that this is going to continue to go down. So this is them moving out of the way, and you can kind of get gauged, because if you are looking at shorts versus longs, typically their job is to make money off of the asset going down. And they obviously, with the turn of tides in the market, they don't want to, get the floor wiped with them. So they typically get out of the way. You don't jump in front of a freight train. So this is another thing that you can kind of use to overlap what you're seeing with the charts to kind of get a good hypothesis based off of where the market's going. And we can take a look here at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been absolutely on a tear today, which is another major indicator. And once we get that 14 crossing the 72 in Bitcoin, that's going to be a monster move there. If we look back here where we had that dip, same thing, right? The 14 crossing the 72, nominal difference to the downside, but to the upside, that triggers an absolute monster. Right. So this is what happened. We were at 42,000 and we ran to 73, almost 100% increase in Bitcoin. So if we had this dip here, same thing, repeating from last pattern, 14 crossing 72, nominal difference, came down to same thing that Dogecoin did. Right. We had some brief closing around the 58,000, but for the most part, that support range held up. And now we're positioning here. You see the band on the 14, and we're about to have that meeting of the minds here between the 14 and 72. If this repeats, this is what puts Bitcoin over 100,000 on this leg, right? So what that does for Doge, ultimately, we don't know, because technically speaking, I can give a projection, which is why I said the 39 to 45 cent range based off of the last movement. But truth be told, after 25 cent, if we're looking at any type of mirroring of 2020, 2021, you start seeing God candles after 25 cents. Especially a 30, 40 cent range, things start to get crazy, right? I don't know if we're going to repeat that. That's we only have that one bull cycle in that range. And we were there on matter of fact, even on the consolidation, we were still doing God candles. So is that going to be repeated? That's to be determined. That's something we're all going to have to figure out together. But just kind of be prepared for that. And that's one of the reasons I bought Doge today. I mentioned that on X, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later tonight. But I believe that we are positioning ourselves to see the next leg up across the board. I think that we're going to see the market rotate upwards. I think we're going to see that across the board in the stock market, meme coins, meme stocks, whatever you want to call them, altcoins. I think we're going to see that across the board. I think this is a very good position to be in, especially for those of you who were patient and were charting things and were, acquiring during the halving and prior to the halving, and now afterwards you have your expectations and you've been patient since the last run. I think this is going to be where the tide shifts and we start to see that upward trend. Now, there will still be sell-offs. Yes, there will still be points where profits are taken, but the market generally trends upwards. And we'll certainly see a period where you kind of get like that parabolic growth or that big boom. And then you can start talking about peaks and all that kind of stuff. But as of right now, there's no evidence that we are even close to a peak in this run. And so right now we can all have our expectations based off of history that this is going to continue to rotate up. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. Let me know if you have any questions, comments in the comment section. I'll try to do another update later tonight. If you did find value in the video, please consider subscribing. We're going to, especially now that we're about to get this cross on 14 to 72 for Bitcoin. Please, if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing so we can get to 100K before Bitcoin does. So I know that clock is winding down for Bitcoin because we're about to see some movement here. So if you can help with that, I'll greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.